40,000 submarinos.
Yeah.
40,000 submarines under the sea. Chris Williamson has 1.24 million subs.
My goodness gracious.
Do you see me pumping out the content?
Yeah.
Be tough being a teenager now, I'd say.
Why?
A lot of social media and stuff. You've always had it,
Do
you
you
know.
actually think that's tough though?
It might be.
Why?
Their suicide rates are high and shit.
Yeah.
No one just talked about stuff really when we were younger
You just got on with
until something bad happened.
it. At which case we also didn't talk about it and just got on with
Absolutely. What we're talking about it too.
it. I hope everyone's doing great.
Most important thing is to don't talk about it. There's a registered psychologist for sports and stuff, and he said don't talk about it.
I'm not the kind of person that can help someone.
You know, when you're doing a sports psych assessment or whatever, or
Yes.
you're in clinical practice,
Yes.
at what point does something go, oh, this person needs to actually go get psychotherapy help or different kind of clinical help?
Once they start displaying the symptoms of depression or a mental health illness.
What about if it's clear that the sport is the issue there, you know? Like, what if you're like, I could help them deal with their sport more often, it might clear up the thing, you know? When do you...
The sport's almost never the issue.
Okay. Say if it was in just a rare circumstance.
Someone's using sport as a coping mechanism for whatever they have.
No, let's say sport is the main driver of these ailments.
Yeah.
But they have symptoms of, say, depression, other issues.
So anytime someone has those symptoms, straight away they're gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair. Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. It's a toughie, isn't it?
It is a toughie, yeah.
You love it, though.
I love it.
So
everyone's saying hello. Taiwaz Tim says cheers and hello from the Appalachian Mountains, USA. Yes. That's the best part. Besides, like, Montana, Appalachia is the best.
Geez, these hoodies are super nice, aren't they?
Yeah.
We should do more for Black Friday again this year. The Appalachians loads of people love talking about the haunted Appalachians and stuff. And, like...
Appalachia.
Monsters and stuff.
Yeah. The Slender Man.
The boys are back in town.
The boys are back in town.
It went from summer when I left, and now it came back 10 days later, and now it's winter. And it's going to be like that for next
The day you left, it became winter.
No, the day I left, it was like 23 degrees.
The morning after you left, it was winter.
And now...
there was rain.
It's just summer, and it's winter now, and it's going to be winter for 6 months. People who live in sunny climates don't understand. If you don't live...
You don't get it.
If you live closer to the Arctic Circle and further away from the equator and you just don't get it, you actually don't understand what winters are like.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for shooting deer, I wouldn't know what I'd do.
That's the only reason I'd live in Ireland.
It's one of the things I think of, I'm not going to lie, if you think about moving country.
Oh, 100%.
You're like, there's nowhere else.
I can't think of another country, unless I was living in certain places in the States where they have loads of deer and you could just buy tags over the counter.
Like it's New Zealand, Hawaii.
New Zealand would have some bang off it.
Yeah.
That would be unbelievable.
But my God, are you far from everywhere?
If anything, that makes it better.
That's true.
Flash
JP Gray said 55 kilo PB running RTS coming off ankle surgery.
I think it's RTA.
Rotor squat, maybe.
Yeah.
That's outrageous.
Unbelievable. 55 kilo PB. That might be the biggest PB we've had so far. We've definitely had some 45 kilo PBs.
Yeah, certainly some 45ers. Spencer Neal says hello. And T says Gratzla. Thank you.
Willie
yeah
says, with GigaChat at 102, will he take Yang Ji place to pull it slower?
No, he's much faster and more athletic and more jacked.
The jackedness actually has such an influence on how derogatory we be to people.
No, like his lockout makes it more nicer. You know, Eric Furkett. I almost said Eric Freckett said happy 40k subs. AM said got lifting shoes, boys, but can't work out yet due to the SI joint issue, but air squats feel weird. How long does it take to adjust the shoes? Within 2 or 3 sessions, you'll be well on your way. The learning curve will be far in the past after like 2 or 3 squat sessions, and then it's a continuous road of any technical improvement like any other lift. But once you get those 2 or 3 sessions done, after say 2 weeks of training in them, however many sessions that is, you'll be well into the learning curve. The learning curve is very steep, but very low in terms of its like impact. Like it's like, oh, this is really different, and now it's fine. Like there's no month-long massive changes. You know, it's as simple as drinking coffee from your cup without dribbling on yourself, like Dara just did.
Smiliev says, "Hey boys, any news on why Ireland didn't weigh in at Worlds? And can we get your thoughts on the whole weigh-in and not compete trend?"
We're going to do a full podcast later in the week because there's so much to talk about. And it's so annoying.
I hate it.
I hate it.
Let's just not get into it because we'll use up all our hate.
Yeah,
but yeah, let's just say you'll hear all about it later on in the week. I really, Mike Andre says, "Greetings, fellers." All right, feller.
All right, fellers.
Eve Ortiz 87, a weekly commenter on the live stream,
consistent,
says, "Hello from Florida. Congrats, Garth. You, the bride, and the son look so kick-ass."
Thanks,
They all look great.
Really appreciate it.
Fair to them.
The best man looked the worst, I think.
The best man looked really hungover. Thomas says, "Hiya lads, congrats on the subs. Thank you. Got a comp on Sunday, but Monday to Friday I can't train heavy due to lack of location. Should I focus on powers and pulls and just rest the week before?" Yeah, if you can't train heavy, just like focus on technical proficiency. Don't go crazy with the powers. A lot of time people will be like, "Oh, I'm going to hit 90% for power," or "I'm going to hit my power 1RM 2 or 3 days out." Don't do that. You want to be moving as closely to your normal snatch and clean and jerk as you possibly can. So even if it means you only have like 40 kilos at home where you can only use 40 kilos of bumpers or something like that, do the full snatch, do the full clean and jerk, maybe do some pulls, maybe do some squats. But besides that, don't go crazy on the powers.
Or do go crazy on the powers.
Skate 961. I'd love to know what the 961 stands for.
Could be like an area code.
Maybe.
Skaters love that, don't they?
They do, yeah.
And they have like area code wars.
90210.
And they have like bladed skateboards.
Yeah, hell yeah, brother. Can I run the RTA squat program? So the rotating squat program with Weightlifting 2.0. If so, how would that work? Yeah, you can certainly do it.
But you don't need to do it.
Weightlifting
2.0 has your squats peaked at the end. There's no need.
If you do want to do it, you just take out all back squats and you substitute in your rote anywhere back squats. Then you add in, so it's not a substitution with the accessory work, you add the accessory work in wherever you can. And then you make sure none of the front squatsy poos go too heavy, i.e. limit them to 100% of your 1 rep max on the clean and jerk.
Banana Bread, long-time commenter, said, Q regarding Julie Imperio. Lads, I think how many lads would love if you did a technique analysis of Julie Imperio? I would be one such lad. Also, congrats on 40k. Thank you. Love you, lads. Would be get much views, 400k sub. So that's one of the reasons we probably won't do it, is because a lot of lads would watch it for the wrong reasons, which is something we're super cautious of here. But anyway, Julie Imperio, we probably will do a technique video at some point, look at the Italian stuff. But the problem with Julie Imperio's, the technical model isn't something I love that she uses, but also she's super small and no one's really built like her. There's very few people out there built like Julia's assessment, which in itself would probably make for an interesting video, but it wouldn't cover the most diverse range of people with that video. But I'm sure we'll get into it. I know Gabriel has a video look at one of the Italian technique, and it might be Julia's technique from a while ago. So if you're looking to tide yourself over, that might be worth viewing.
Congrats on 40k. So I've purchased Gabriel's beginner 4-week program, and it's awesome. That's great to hear. Gabriel is the man.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Andrew says, not an injury question. Not an injury question, but how do I fix my injury? Not an injury question. Sorry.
Andrew said, not an injury question. Coming back from a hamstring tear, missed 10 weeks of training. Any recommendations on building my squat back up? So one of the blanket recommendations you'll have once you're cleared to be under a certain level of pain, or once you're pain free when you're building back up, is don't assume your 1RM before matters in any fashion. You just have to go on your current abilities now and what you feel like your 1RM is, or get as a close approximation of that as possible without re-injuring yourself or overloading the system too soon. So if your max before was 200 kilos, it's been 10 weeks and you missed 10 weeks of training. So realistically, your capability right now, your maximum force output at the start of that training block is probably 170, maybe a little bit more, but not a whole lot more. So the first place is, if you don't have a lot of experience, where you could start doing your working sets and have a good approximation of your max. Once you get into a training block, what you might need to do is get a good approximation of your max. So work up to whatever it is that's close enough to need a safe weight, but that will give you a good estimation of where your max lies currently. So if you start doing a bit of squatting and you work up and you do 120 and it's super hard, you do a set of 5 and it balls out, you don't need to keep going for that single. You can go, okay, I'm pretty sure my max is somewhere around like 150 currently, or whatever it is you do. So just use your experience or a little bit of testing, very safe and cautious testing, to get a good approximation. Then use that as your 1RM to build your squat back up on whatever squat program or progression you would normally use or you would like to use in this scenario.
Smith-Jitsu says, hey, just popping in to say congrats, lads. Thanks very much, Smith-Jitsu. Ben Orr says, was the Andreev block stat yesterday on yesterday's news 170 or 160? The bar looked like 160 to me. He definitely did 170.
Yeah, it was definitely 170.
Maybe that's not the video, but he definitely did 170.
It was a weird way of loading it.
Yeah. Ares XXX says, how many Chileans here? I will say we send a surprising amount of supplements to Chile.
No way.
So strange, yeah.
Chile is somewhere I'd love to go.
Boxing them up.
Yeah.
You just, every so often it's just like, oh, that's very strange.
Isn't it mad that it goes to Chile? Like that
just arrived in Chile.
We give it to.
It was in there.
Yeah.
And then it's in Chile.
Like it crosses an ocean that I can't even swim my arms wide enough. It's so big.
Yeah.
It's just, and it gets to Chile.
And you're on a 3,000 to 1 scale there. Like.
And it's just the bottom of the world.
But you know what's crazy now? Our words are arriving in Chile right now.
That's actually crazier when you think about it. Our images and words.
Yeah.
This was unfathomable to everyone
10 years ago.
Nah, not 10 years ago. Up to 30 years ago, this wasn't even possible.
I know, but just general people live streaming.
10 years ago in 2000, isn't it?
2013.
Do you know what I mean? In your head, it's like, 10 years ago, it's not.
No.
It's not. 10 years ago, 2013. But yeah.
Dr. Demographics.ie says, watching from the beach in Sardinia, very sunburnt. I tried to thank the sun and lost. The sun beeth very powerful.
Sardinia.
Mike Evo style says, Algo and sub. Congrats, lads. Thank you, Mike. When does Mike love Evo 8s?
Oh, thanks, Billy, my homie, for the...
Oh, thank you so much, yeah.
Gratitude.
Alex Arquila says, morning, lads. At what point is it unethical for a coach to try brand new method of training without any real evidence for it? Unethical is like coaching ethics. If you do S&C or exercise science or one of those courses, you will have a module that incorporates coaching ethics into it. Coaching ethics really falls far outside the realms of what most people would think of as like what's ethical or not.
Don't touch your athletes.
It's like, don't abuse anyone.
Yeah.
Don't consciously cheat or force somebody else to cheat. And then besides that, it comes under your own brand of coaching.
Yeah.
Like some people are really out there in terms of not sticking to the norms. They're going to really be experimental. They're going to be right on that edge of new adopter or early adopter. I
think
in my view,
yeah,
your obligation to an athlete is to give them the best chance possible at their sport. But even saying that is very like your level of bringing in something new or something kind of flashy or something that mightn't be quite so well written about in the literature. That level changes from athlete to athlete as well. Like if you've an 18-year-old athlete who is just been training for 6 months, they're a bit talented, they have a weird thing where their knees flare out at the bottom, you might be like, just try this for a couple of sessions, see how it goes. That's perfectly ethical to do that, even though you mightn't have read 15 peer-reviewed studies on that. But then if you have somebody who is going for their first ever professional contract and you say, oh, we have 15 weeks of an off season now, and we're just going to do blood flow restriction, even though there's quite a lot of literature around blood flow restriction training and how it influences hypertrophy. In my case, I would think even using that would be quite unethical, because you know there's a better way to do it, and you know the arena of consequences quite high when that person really wants their pro contract.
So the issue with this is that, is it unethical if you're ignorant? And I mean that in the least douchey way possible. But if you're super ignorant of what should be done with training, and you truly believe, in spite of you just being wrong, not even good evidence, in spite of you just being wrong, is it still unethical? I think, that a lot of people could argue for and against that in terms of ethics. That's why ethics is such a funny thing. But in terms of brand new methods with coaching, like, one of your main priorities as a coach is to never injure your athletes. So if you're sure they're not going to injured, you're taking off some ethics there. But
you also have an ethical obligation to be trying to push forward with your coaching techniques.
There's also, if you discuss it with your athlete, if you're like, look, I think this is a little bit wacky, but it might just get the job done. Then I think you're in a better position ethically, because everyone's on board. Whereas if you get someone who comes to you like that 18-year-old who is fully
unsound,
if you get that 18-year-old who comes to you and they're like, this is their life is headed, and they're clearly talented enough, and they're very on the verge of going pro or something, and you don't tell them that this is a new method, you just go straight in and try something and it fucks up their career, the magnitude of fuck up there is obviously a lot more impactful than if it's a 35-year-old casual lifter, for example, or whatever it is, or casual rugby player or something, where it doesn't really matter. The magnitude of real world effect isn't that big, and if you discuss it with the athletes, then there's some form of ethical protection or some form of ethics going in the whiter area as opposed to the darker side of ethics. But ultimately, in this particular scenario, if someone is trying something completely brand new, they're probably ignorant of training. And if we're really going like just left field, if we're going like crazy out there, for us really talking about brand new method of training, so we're not even talking about like S&C barbells and sport kind of thing, or barbells for sport and gym work. We're just going, all we're going to do is hang upside down with spider boots and in the forest, and there's no gym equipment, that kind of thing. We're talking really brand new. You're probably just super ignorant. Pipes. Like but of course, like, your ignorance or your belief in spite of ethics, also, you can still be unethical even if you believe you're doing the right thing. So it's a complicated question, but thankfully it doesn't come up that often, because hopefully you're not that ignorant.
Hopefully you're just using the classics. Nasser says congrats. Mike Evo still says the momentum is building for you. Raging Truth says, sorry is that was discussed before. What are your thoughts on chiropractic manipulation? I love getting my back cracked.
Yeah.
And pretty much everything cracked. When I played rugby, I had basically a standing appointment with a chiropractor every week. Went in, got my upper back manipulated, got my hips manipulated. Do I think that's the best thing? No. Do I recommend for everyone to do that? No. But I absolutely love it. And I will say, I've dealt with certain chiropractors that were absolutely phenomenal. And I'm thinking of two people in particular who I really haven't met anyone else like that. Leon was a guy who, when I was playing rugby, I worked at him on, as I said, like a weekly basis. Rocco, Racha Chacha. Rocco is absolutely phenomenal. You saw him in some videos in London with Owen. Rocco fixed, I had like a lump on the back of my neck that we referred to as the scrummaging lump. Basically like a protruding lump from the base of my neck. It was from playing rugby and getting my head pulled down. That lump had turned black from the barbell sitting on it. Just all the nerve endings had died. And in around 15 minutes, Rocco got rid of that lump forevermore, which was genuinely crazy. And we had a particularly skeptical Olympic weightlifter stroke Olympic medalist with us. And he was like, oh my God, that's amazing. I've never seen that before.
So I think the question is, or the kind of thought process there, or the thing you need to think about is, when it comes to chiropractors, at what end does their chiropractic section of rehab end? And then they start doing other stuff that would typically be seen as non-traditional chiropractic work. Are they still a chiropractor, or are they a chiropractor when they're just doing traditional chiropractic techniques? And then if we do different divergent things like whatever rehab, typically, like if we take my niece, for example, we have that video, did a Rocco. Rocco is a chiropractor, but he used what most people would consider non-traditional chiropractic techniques to correct my knee pain, and that was via rehabilitation work and particular assistance work. So is Rocco not a chiropractor when he's giving me those stuff, when he's giving these rehab techniques? And is he just a chiropractor when he's doing those things? Because if that's the case, then I haven't seen a huge amount of benefit directly from chiropractic work. But did Rocco only come to those conclusions, for example, by being a chiropractor and learning from that area? And is it all super congruent? Maybe. And if that's the case, then chiropractor is great. So it really depends, like all of these rehabilitation areas, physiotherapists, physical therapists, neuromuscular therapists, chiropractors, doctors, it all really depends on the individual. It makes so much of a difference that it's actually so individual dependent that it's almost irrelevant what they're qualified in. It really depends on the person.
Yeah, I also think it really depends on the country, because the level of education that these people receive from country to country is so vastly different.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're a chiropractor in Canada versus a chiropractor in the US or a chiropractor in the UK or Europe, very, very different things, like in terms of being able to call yourself a doctor of chiropractics. I don't know. There's very, very different levels of education. So I would be careful with who you go to, as with any therapist, physical therapist, physiotherapist, sports massage person.
Did Michaela? That's Michaela, isn't it? That is Michaela. Woo. That's not $40, is it? There's no need for that.
Oh my God. Thank you so much.
Well, it's answering. So Billy just said, Billy said 40k thumbs up. So Billy, long-term commenter as well. Thanks for that. Michaela said, congrats on 40k, lads. Question: I noticed my knees immediately go out to the sides during the first pull, but come very close together during the start of the second pull. What should I be doing to fix this? Thanks. So Michaela, if you are a female athlete, this is a relatively common problem that you mostly see in female athletes. And the reason we see this is just we see more frequently larger room in external rotation and internal rotation in the hip structure. We also see that in the soft tissue and the rest of the body. It's why female athletes really benefit from a lot of strict pressing and benching and upper body work to improve stability. So when female athletes who are essentially of any age and any weight and any training experience, a lot of times you'll see they'll tend towards, specifically in weightlifting, but in plenty of sports, we'll talk about weightlifting here specifically, is that they usually have greater range of motion compared to the average male counterpart, but generally less stability and strength through that range of motion. And it's kind of obviously one of the many reasons why sport is kind of segregated in that regard. And it's one of the reasons why benching and upper body work and kind of high force, slower movements really beneficial for female athletes weightlifting, is because we increase that stability. And if you think about the upper body and just kind of swipe that template down to the lower body, the hip structure can be very, very similar. It's why we'll see a lot of even elite female weightlifters, when they're squatting, we'll see a huge amount of knee valgus, but that knee valgus isn't necessarily an issue with the female athletes like it would be in a male athlete, because for whatever reason, this greater range of motion is something that doesn't seem to place as much stress. They seem a little bit freer. However, then when we get to things like weightlifting technique, we can see that issue where the knee valgus happens as you get heavier. You can see it in male athletes as well, and it could be any number of reasons. But if I had to suspect, I would say it's probably a stability issue or a lower body strength issue. You could look at stuff like ankle pronation or flat feet. So I wouldn't think it's that if your knees are initially going out when you pull, unless you're consciously pushing them out when they start the lift, you probably don't have an issue. So if you had pronated ankles where they collapse in, be that from an arch or lack of arch in your foot or a particular alignment issue, but I would suspect it's something that probably requires just some more lower body strength. Now, easier said than done, of course, to address. The process is relatively simple and straightforward. I would start by looking at what's your back squat to snatch ratio. So if you're talking about snatch here during the second pull, so it could be clean as well. I would just look at your squatting and particularly your back squat in relation to your snatch and clean. If you're clean and jerking 100 kilos, but you're back squatting 120, for example, or maybe even less, like 115, then we're probably in a much too close realm in terms of squat to lift ratio. But if we're looking at something like, which I probably don't think is the case, if you're squatting 150 kilos, but you're clean and jerking 100, it could be simply a neuromuscular control, or it's a particular pattern of something that you have refined or reinforced consistently over your training technique, which is a little bit harder to address. So in that case, you want to be looking at, is the squat strength enough? And then you probably need to be looking at practicing particular drills, stuff like slow pull snatches, pause at the knee snatches are probably very good. Looking at that ankle or the footwear, so you could be very, very strong in relation to your snatch, clean and jerk and have those pronated ankles, maybe. So it probably would depend on a couple of different areas, but I think that's most of them covered.
Yeah, I will say in 95% of the cases I've seen of that happening, where you get knees coming out at the start of the pull and then coming back together into kind of, so going from neutral to varus then to vagus rotation, it's almost always female and lighter weight class athletes, and they're almost always just that bit too weak. So I would say in that case, as Gareth was talking about, lower body strength and back strength as well. One of the kind of adjacents to that is people who have very weak backs will tend to push their knees out to the side in the first pull to keep the barbell super close to them, to get their ass low and keep their chest up. And that's really, really not beneficial. They'll look at that kind of Asian style of pull. And you really want to get away from that. And a lot of the time it's because we might have slightly too weak of a back. And so plenty of pulls in that case will really help with that, Michaela.
You could be looking at single leg work as well, which I'd be definitely including regardless of the issue, because you'd be very surprised what you'd expose in terms of strength work. So bands, distracted split squats on the floor, or front foot elevated band distracted split squats with knee being pulled laterally and pulled in the opposite direction. Just play around with pulled internally and externally with the bands kind of at essentially parallel with the floor at knee level, and then seeing is one way much harder than the other. And you'd be surprised if there's an issue. Practice or play around with some crab walks and monster walks, banded clams, and it should give you an idea of what might be an issue there. So I think that's everything.
Yeah. The final thing I would say, a great little test to figure out if it is like a raw strength issue or more of a motor control issue, is video yourself from front on and from directly behind doing a max vertical jump or a max box jump. And that'll give you a great idea for, is it just you can't control your knees? Or is it the actual raw strength is the issue? Okay, Natalie Heggie says, I think my leg strength is holding me back the most.
Nathaniel, I think.
Nathaniel.
Yeah.
Sorry. Nathaniel says, I think my leg strength is
there's no way there'd be two consecutive female commenters.
Holding me back the most. I know your beginner weightlifting program will work on that, but I think running the RTA first would be more productive. No. No. So everybody makes this mistake. I've made this mistake myself. I've seen hundreds of people make this mistake where we think I'm weak, my weightlifting is bad, and so to make my weightlifting better, I become less weak. Weightlifting is the sport. Weightlifting really is the number one thing. The beginner weightlifting program will have plenty of squatting in it. It will really push your squats over the course of those 12 weeks. Taking time away from weightlifting is the most detrimental thing you can do for your weightlifting. So it is hugely important that we don't sacrifice our time we have with weightlifting because we want to focus on something else. Now, focusing on something else for an off season for a month or two is great, but don't think you're doing it to make your weightlifting better. You're doing it to give yourself a bit of a break, maybe to address some weaknesses. But the best thing possible for your weightlifting will be to do weightlifting and get stronger at the same time.
I made this mistake despite evidence strongly to the contrary that I was, in fact, not too weak for weightlifting.
You made this mistake while telling me not to make this mistake.
I would say I did it belligerently and wantingly, knowing my crime, but still pursuing my crime vehemently with vigor, to the detriment of my weightlifting at that time.
Alexios says hello from Cork. Congratulations on 40k. And congratulations, Owen. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Alexios.
Eric says, please more like for the stream. Please, everybody like. There's now a little love heart button that you can just like it with.
Oh, there is actually.
Yeah.
I'll do it right now.
Billy says, another milestone for subs.
What's next? 75, I suppose?
75, yeah.
50 doesn't seem
50
right.
is...
Yeah, 50
is legit.
50, 75, 100, and then 500. No, 250.
Yeah, $250,000 is definitely there.
Yeah.
Kaiser says, hey lads, what are some good standards to work up to for core strength? Example, weighted planks and sit-ups. The first thing is it really depends what you're getting after, but...
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot recently.
I have my ones.
My thing is, it actually doesn't matter about the standards. And people have asked this for years. The most important thing is you're just progressing from where you are now. If you are essentially too weak, it doesn't matter, because the training effect you'll get isn't directly correlated to the number or time under tension or whatever. If you just progress from, if your core is terrible now and you make any effort to progress with it, you'll see the benefits, and that's all that matters. That's what I think.
Yeah. I do think 50% of body weight on your hips for a 60 to 90 second plank is great, though.
How much?
50% of body weight.
60 kilos for you? You can't do that with 60 kilos.
No, I said 50%.
Sorry, 65 kilos for you. Fucking hell.
Yeah.
On your hips.
60 to 90 seconds.
For side plank?
No, for plank.
For plank.
Elbows plank, normal plank, 50% of body weight. And then I like people to be moving towards 100% of body weight.
What can I do? Side planks. You love side planks as well.
Yeah. Colin says, congrats on 40k. Thanks for all the great advice and hilarious banter. Thank you, Colin.
I've lost where I am now.
Oh, yeah. GS Carey says, when is Combat Athlete 2 coming out?
Oh, so
Combat
close.
Athlete
so
2.
Close. So.
And Becoming a Horse.
Yeah.
And a host of other new delectable little program offerings.
Maybe next week.
Oh.
Maybe next week. Maybe.
I will go so far as to say
certainly very possibly next Monday, but maybe.
It's not even the most exciting part.
What's that is? Oh, if they're okay.
The new programs.
Okay.
Rad says Rad Reynolds. Rad Reynolds is a great name, isn't it?
He's been a commentator for a long time.
That's like a comic book detective name.
Rad Reynolds.
Rad Reynolds. Do you guys know of the American NCAA coach Will Rattel? Rattel sounds
really familiar.
But I think Rattel is actually a sports science researcher.
No, is Rattel doing something with Blaine McConnell? Is he doing a program with him soon?
Anyway, feel like you guys have a lot of overlap. Man's an absolute house. That name sounds so familiar that I feel like...
Yeah, it sounds really familiar, but there's nothing I can add to this because I don't think I know who he is. But I think I know who he is, but I'm not sure. I haven't...
There's definitely a sports science or a sports researcher called Rattel.
There is actually, isn't there? I wonder, is that him?
Actual Random says the Julia Mistrandino technique video is what we need.
I'm sure I've done a video on Julia Mistrandino's technique.
David O'Neill says there's no such thing as chiropractic medicine. It's quackery. Jeez, I knew the hate would come out. I didn't even read the first comment about it.
People fucking hate chiropractors.
The resident thrower of Sikistan, Andrew, Electrive Throws, says, congrats, lads. Proud to be here from the start. And to be fair, Andrew has been here from the bitter start. Me and girlfriend, our bedrooms. Sporty Spiky Pikey 1 says, congrats on 40k.
Dr. Demographics does have Seek Sleep with him.
Nice.
In Sardinia.
I've been taking Seek Sleep the whole time for the past 2.5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I ran out for a while, which is quite strange because I'm surrounded by it every day, but I kept forgetting to bring it home.
I steal it all the time.
Yeah. On another funny note, I was taking some nootropics. And myself and girlfriend been having a choline discussion, which is strange. They're the kind of discussions that go on in this office, though.
Yeah.
And I'd actually been taking choline for a month every day without realizing it.
Choline is unbelievable. Choline is
the goat.
Choline is, if you're training and you're not taking choline, choline's unbelievable. Zachary said, if you're creating a human being to get 4 gold weightlifting medals, what would you choose that human to be born with? An incredible resilience to performance enhancing drugs.
No, what year would you choose that human to be born in?
Okay. If you're creating a human to get, what year would you choose? In 1970. So if we got 80, what was it? 88, 84, 78.
1970.
The 90s are really good as well. So if you work back from 2000, actually you'd be okay. 2000, 96, 92 and 88. Yeah. So if you were born in 70, you'd just be 18 for your first Olympics, maybe even 17. So like 69.
Yeah. So 71.
Yeah.
1971.
You hit your first Olympics. Boom.
Bish, bash, bosh.
Seoul, class. Not from Bulgaria, because compete in Seoul. Then boom, on to Barcelona. Then on to Atlanta. Heyday of weightlifting at the Olympics, some might say. Sydney, all downhill after Sydney. So if you could peak at Sydney, 4 gold.
I'm going to post a little redaction here.
Well,
no, not redaction, sorry.
Yeah, go on.
A counterpoint.
Yeah.
A counter to your point.
Go on.
Is, and there's a quite big caveat here that's assuming weightlifting stays in the Olympics now.
Yeah.
Is that I think
go on,
the best year to be born in will be right now.
Being born now?
Right now.
Why now?
Assuming you're born in the correct country.
Why?
Because I think there's technological means to ensure that you can continue to take
Plasma is already invented there. We're not talking about healthiest athlete possible. We're talking about...
I'm saying in terms of staying competitively relevant for 4 Olympic quads. No, there's no... Weightlifters are lifting longer into their careers now.
Only because of Instagram.
Weightlifters turned 25 and we're like, he's okay, I'm finished now.
That's because it's been 20 years of hard abuse.
I know.
And you're living off fucking...
But you're still going to have to do, you're still going to have to do the hard abuse.
Water, stew, and bread.
That makes my argument more valid. Okay. Thomas says, not an injury question, but what's an issue with Liu Xiaojun's collarbone? I've got the similar issue.
You can't fix it. A chiropractor might be able to fix it, but it's actually, you can't fix this.
The skin on your collarbones here is around 2 microns thick.
No, you can't fix that. I don't know what it is. Liu Xiaojun couldn't fix it. You can't fix that. You might get a good chiropractor. Talk to Rocco, but...
Talk to Rocco.
I've actually never seen him fix this.
Rocco Venezuelas. I can't pronounce the second name.
Peter said best core exercises for improving pull-ups. You don't really need any core exercise. Maybe a hollow rock or hollow body or hollow holds would be quite useful. That would be for the kind of aesthetic chin-up. Maybe you're really slightly out of line. But to be honest... pull-ups are quite a useful core exercise, especially if you start weighting them. The abdominal contraction you get on weighted chin-ups is something else. So it's underrated. So honestly, Peter, just knock out pull-ups and your core will achieve the adequate strength. If you really need to do additional leg raises, knees to chest, L-sits, hollow body, hollow rocks, would get you a long way there.
Zach Divilbis says, recommendations for working on my deadlift when my main focus is squatting, snatching, and clean and jerking. Should I do deadlift in a separate block without snatch and clean and jerk? If your main focus is snatch and clean and jerk and the squat, you really shouldn't be. You shouldn't have the side quest of the deadlift. The deadlift really won't help you too much. What I will say is like doing your snatch pulls and doing your clean pulls after the snatch and after the clean respectively will be very beneficial to it. It will help you with your snatch and will help you with your clean, but the deadlifts really won't go up. The main thing, the main driver of all deadlift adaptation is the back squat, and it's not the deadlift. So as long as you're kind of staying in touch with the deadlift, maybe doing it once every week and a half, so 7 to 10 days, if you're doing a deadlift, you're pretty okay. But once your back squat is going up, so as soon as you're driving your back squat and staying in touch with your deadlift, you'll still make deadlift progressions.
Jesus, Werp just gave us $40 here as well, which is too much. There's no need. Not a lifter by any stretch. Thanks, Werp, though. But I've enjoyed your new show immensely, and your videos give me an insight to the world that several of my friends inhabit powerlifting. Congrats on 40K. Keep at it. That's so nice.
Yeah.
People,
thank you so much.
People are so nice, aren't they?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
And I'm really sorry that you're friends with powerlifters.
It's super unfortunate.
Being friends with a fair few powerlifters ourselves, we're sorry to hear.
I'd watch YouTube instead of talking to them as well if I was friends with powerlifters.
User JR6HM3RE1R says,
go on. I'm interested.
Train hard as fuck in Sika pull accessories beyond prescribed weights and reps, or pace myself and stick to the program, still sticking to the deadlift rep schemes. Just go as prescribed.
Go as prescribed, yeah. Yeah. You could add in a little bit more, maybe core work if needed, and maybe some more upper back work if you feel like it's a big issue. But there's enough people have run the program where they didn't kill themselves on it and made that progress. So unless you're seeing like crazy lack of capacity to maintain a static back position throughout the deadlift, or you're getting knee valgus and you're pulling and you need to do additional work, then definitely go for it. But if there's no major issues like that, if your deadlift technique is consistent and it doesn't break down crazy at heavy weights, then there's no need to murder yourself on the assistance work, as much as a temptation as that might be.
Collier Bleu says, if you have an appropriate ratio between classic lifts and strength lifts, so snatch, clean, or jerk 80% of back squat, snatch 60% of back squat, clean and jerk 80%, what should you emphasize in programming? So this is a point we covered kind of massively in the Snatch Masterclass. You can find that on Teachable, University of Sikistan, 4 and a bit hours of Snatch programming advice. But assuming that your lifts are all in pretty good ratios, and assuming there's nothing you immediately need to fix, like an injury or rehabbing, something like that, everything that's not a snatch and a clean and jerk should be viewed as a sacrifice to your progress in programming. Specificity is absolutely vital. So every time we do something that's not a snatch and clean and jerk, so say we might do snatch plus snatch balance, you have to understand that that is now taking away from snatching and it's doing some very specific task. And that specific task might be really important because I might have a weak overhead driver. I might be weak in the catch position at a snatch. I might be taking some time away from snatch and clean and jerk and doing more back squats. That's a direct sacrifice to me progressing with the snatch and progressing with the clean and jerk. So if everything is going well, you want to do as much snatch and as much clean and jerk as you possibly can. And then you fill in the rest with where your needs, where needs must. So you still have to do your squats. You'll probably have to do some pulls. You'll probably have to do some accessory work. But the snatch and the clean and jerk is always the focus for weightlifting.
Alexia said, any thoughts on external versus... Is the stream still going? That's just my phone. Internal plus external rotation in the snatch catch position. I don't specifically coach either, but one of my arms goes into internal and the other goes into external. So definitely, and it is primarily external rotation in the catch position of the snatch. I don't like when people actively look for snatch internal rotation, as it's an extraneous movement and it's something you'll have to consciously work on. So we go from opening up those elbows into this externally rotated position when we focus on just locking out our elbows. To get to this internally rotated position, we would have to further add extra body movement. So we're here and we've caught the barbell, and then in a fraction of a second later, we need to go further here, and however forward we can go. It just doesn't make sense from an efficiency point of view. But if we look at what actually happens, pretty much all lifters are largely externally rotated, dominant in the snatch catch position. The jerk can be a little bit different, but in the snatch, it's externally rotated primarily is the goal. But you don't even need to think about either of those. What we talk about is just lock out your elbows, keep a relatively straight wrist, a nice strong wrist position with a fist, and you'll end up in the position you need to be. trying to get that internal rotation position is just something that won't happen at heavier lifts. And if you're constantly thinking of something like that at heavier lifts, it's going to be terrible.
The only thing I really don't like with that real internal rotation in the snatch overhead is your wrist position becomes terrible. Like if I internally rotate my hand, my palm is pointed down to the floor. So I then have to bring in some sort of extraneous rotation into my wrist, which puts me in a bad position overhead. Like that's, if I'm in a pretty neutral and slightly externally rotated position, my elbows kind of pointed up to the ceiling, I get that natural V catch position with my wrist. And now it's a very, very strong position. If I'm internally rotated, I kind of have to kick my wrist into that limp wrist, poor position.
DB said, "Hi guys, why are you out in Malta every now and then? Any good gym swimming spot recommendations out there?" So it's only second time in Malta last week. The first time I went out there with my fiance to see if I want to get married there. Turns out we did. Last time I was there, just got married.
You came back with a wife.
Came back to get married. Swimming spots, I don't know, other than the ocean. I don't know if you mean like for adventure swimming, but for gyms, the training room is fantastic. A great gym, and very accommodating and lovely people there. So definitely a great place to go train. Training room. It's about a 10 to 15 minute drive, less than 15-minute drive from St. Julian's Bay.
Great gym. Colin McGrath 41 says he had double whites on. It was definitely 170.
Oh, okay. That's about Andrew's block snatch.
Evan Lee, one of our favorite athletes here at Tikistan, says, first of all, congrats, Ewan. Congrats, Ewan.
Thank you.
Secondly, I want to start weightlifting again while I'm still somewhat spry about it. I just did my first jiu-jitsu class in about 7 years. Evan, we'll have a chat about this. Unfortunately, weightlifting and jiu-jitsu are just non-congruent.
They do not go together.
We will talk about this. Okay, Runner Boy says, what's a good overhead press to body weight ratio? 1-to-1. 1-to-1 is great.
Yeah, if you can get the body weight, you're doing fantastic. That's a good one.
That's why you pressed 120, wasn't it?
I didn't quite get the body weight. Khalil Blue said, recommendation on wide toe box shoes for general training, everything except squats and classic lifts. Everything except squats and classic lifts. These field grounds, I fucking love them. They're great. So recommendations, yeah. So just general training, yeah. I would pick these field grounds. They're
the best looking barefoot shoe.
Pricey. Kind of pricey, €120, I think.
That's the kind of price of shoes, though, isn't it? These are like 100 and something.
Were they?
110, I'd say.
You paid 110 for Vans. You got it ripped off.
Did I?
You can get Vans online for like €50.
No way. Can you get sick Vans like this, though?
Yeah, on just those Vans right there, I'd say probably get them.
No way.
So these are field grounds, so I'd recommend those. But there's a shoe Blaine was wearing. Was it Strike Movement?
Oh, yeah.
And I think they're white or toe box as well. So that might be something to look into. Okay, I think we have to pick a few there.
Firstly, thanks so much, everyone who tuned in. Thanks for the super likes. We're always very, very appreciative of those.
Actually, I'll answer Aries there. So, lads, I'm moving 2 months, planning to join an MMA gym nearby. Is jogging a good general non-specific way to build stamina for without changing my training structure so I don't die in the first day? No. Your best bet is to do Tabata on an assault bike or hill sprints and do both of these as frequently as your recovery will allow and as intensity as you can get. Like, try to get so close to vomiting. And that's the only thing that replicates. If you haven't done MMA or any kind of combat sports before, that's the only thing that'll get you close. And just do it as frequently as your other training aspects in life will allow. And obviously recoverability.
Evan just texted me and said, I know I need to pick one.
DB said, what minimalist home gym setup would you opt for if overall hypertrophy is the aim? Dumbbell rack, cable machine, and probably a Smith machine. And lots of plates, obviously.
If I was budget minded.
I don't think he said anything about budget. Oh, he said minimalist.
Minimalist, I'd go.
Oh, fuck. None of those things.
Loadable dumbbells. The dumbbells with the like spinny edges on them, or whatever loadable dumbbell set you have, and get a set that you can go heavy on, like definitely up to 50 kilos per dumbbell. That's the first thing. And to be honest, you'll get most of the way there with that. Second thing then is some pull-up bar with a pulley system on it. So pulley or normal pull-up bar, nice and high, so you can put your rings on it. You can put bands on it, all that good stuff. But get one of those attachable pulley systems so you'll have some sort of cable loading system. They're so useful. I've seen them in a good few gyms now. I think they're an absolutely great idea.
Yeah, so probably the barbell and plates as well. I know it's not minimalist, but it is relatively cheap to get them now, and you don't need a lot of space to use them. So it'd be 45-degree bench, loadable dumbbells, and the pull-up aspect. But you do kind of need something loadable for the legs. The barbell and squat rack is very, very beneficial, but there's nothing really minimalist for actual leg hypertrophy.
Okay, last one. Tachyon 2X says, is beginner weightlifting program volume in the first few weeks a wee bit too much for 110 kilo 30-year-old? Am I just unfit? Definitely unfit.
Yeah.
Depending on what training you've been doing before Tachyon, you might just not have been doing enough volume. And so in that case, what I recommend is take your first week of programming, reduce all the loads by 20 to 15%. So this is week 1 minus 2. That's their first week of training. Then you go and you take the first week of training as prescribed, reduce all the loads by 10%. Do that. That's your second week of training, or you might call it week 1 minus 1. And then your third week of training is week 1. Then you go to week 2, week 3, week 4. That's a really simple way of doing it, just simple reductions. 20% the first time you do it, 10% reduction the second time you do it. Then the third time you do the first week is your actual first week. The other option, if you don't want to do that and you want to have a bit more va-va-voom to it, is we have a program called the Returning to Weightlifting, or Getting Back to Weightlifting. This was really for people who hadn't trained at all over COVID. And we have this program available. It's 4 weeks long, 4 sessions per week. And that will give you a nice little up ramp into training.
Thank you so much for all the comments. Thank you so much for all the super chats, which is crazy. And thank you to everyone who's watched us. And we will see you at 400,000 subs, I suppose, next week. That's only next milestone.
We'll see you all again next week.
And tomorrow. Thank you.
Tomorrow.